I don't swim with the tide. I don't walk the dreaded path. I refuse to dance to the beat of a regular drum. The real question isn't about being different. The real question is, why? Is it for shock and awe? Is it being different to stand out from the rest? Or is it just annoying? Are these illusions of self-grandeur? Or is it to shock society into awareness, to question the unquestionable? Regardless of purpose and intent, I find it impossible to follow the herd. Conventional wisdom to me is an absurd notion. Many of you will not concur with me. Some will dismiss, others will rise against it. If you don't agree with me, raise your hand and get in line. I am the Contrarian, and this is my world.
A long time ago, love was an emotion expressed with a lot of care. Meeting someone meant family and friends would get you together. Falling in love meant actually meeting someone and coming to know that person one day at a time by actually meeting that person physically. Efforts to woo someone would include a handwritten note and very long love letters. Scheduling and planning a date would take a lot of serious thought. And finally, after months of testing the waters, negotiating with families, readying a 5-year plan, finally, after all that drama, straight out of a Yash Raj movie, would you get to marry the person you loved. But time, tide and technology wait for no one and have completely and totally changed love. Today, we are committed to our technology. We decipher meaning from WhatsApp messages, what's written and what's not. We browse human beings like online shopping. A Facebook like means interest. A poke equals to flirting. Love letters can now be written using only a string of emoticons. Tinder, OkCupid, Hinge, we are a few of our many matchmakers. This is love in the times of tech, and it seems like it's here to stay.
Yes, romance as we know it is dead. Or maybe technology has changed the very meaning of romance and love and reinvented a new kind of love, digital love. A recent study has found that at an average 17% of recently married couples met online, and with the swelling internet penetration that we have all around, this number is sure to double, triple in the next few years. But by changing the rules of courtship and relying only on technology to find true love, are we expanding our options, our horizons, or are we getting more fickle, more inhuman, almost robotic in approaching the most important relationship of our lives?
Earlier, a lot of us were dependent on our parents to find a match for us, and according to statistics, most of these matrimonial sites, more than 50% of these registrations on matrimonial sites were done by the parents or siblings, right? One thing that these dating apps have done is it has empowered the people looking out for the partner, right? Suddenly today I can actually look beyond my social graph, beyond my set of friends.
When people have these very carefully curated profiles, how they present themselves online and how they actually appear in person can sometimes be two different things. And I think for me, I had a couple of incidents where I went out and the girl who I sat down across the table with didn't quite look like the photos that she had posted of herself online. And not that there's anything wrong with that, but it would have been nice if she'd just been honest right from the get-go, because it wasn't like I wasn't going to find out eventually.
There was this couple that actually met on Moo, and they realized they were on the same floor, in the same office, and it was amazing. Then obviously that blossomed into something. Sometime in Feb, we got a marriage invite into the office, right? So this couple who met on Woo got married on the 12th of March. It was amazing. The team was excited. It's a big validation for us because it's really happening. You know, the sparks are flying and it's even going all the way to marriage.
Dating apps have proved to be very successful in countries abroad, and following that success model, India too has become a hub of locally produced apps for casual mingling. The only problem with Indian apps is an overly unbalanced ratio of men and women users. Most Indian apps are flooded by male users, which is unhealthy for apps of these kinds to function. Another use case issue, and a very big one at that, is of privacy. These matchmaking apps not only screen user conversations but also rely on location data of users to create matches. Now, if that isn't a security hurdle, then what is?
One of the things that the dating apps are getting used to is a very exhaustive, report abuse mechanism in place, right? Which kind of keeps the creeps away, if you know what I mean, right? So the idea is to make these dating apps as safe for women as possible. And and to achieve that, if you have to do back-end profile screening, sure, why not?
It's important for people to feel very comfortable about the network they're joining, right? And that's where something like curation and checking profiles is very important. So we want people to feel like this is a community that they belong in, and we're making sure that it's a network and they're interacting with people that they would like to interact with. And that essentially leads on to the next big point, which is building trust with the product like Woo.
Now, I for one will not be comfortable if my personal conversations are constantly being monitored by a third party, simply because it creeps me out to think that someone sitting in an office with a computer has the ability to view, use, and maybe even share intimate detail of my life or your life. Even though not all dating apps do that, but the few which do are enough to prove the security lapses in this matchmaking system.
Now, even if one was to discount the security issue with dating apps, the fact is that there is no replacement for face-to-face, in-person communication when it comes to falling in love. Partners must be able to openly talk about their feelings instead of hiding behind a smartphone texting, chatting, and emailing. E-love is simply not enough to keep partners connected.
Tinder, one of the popular dating apps, what happens is, I feel it is very shallow. I feel it is very judgmental. I don't want somebody to look at my photograph and then say, hey, you know what, I want to get in touch with this guy. That is not good enough for me. Okay, I want to be spoken to. Okay, I want to be understood. I really, want to know the person with whom I'm going to go out on a date.
Some of my friends in the US say a problem with going out to bars now is you try and talk to someone who you think might be single, but in fact everyone is ignoring everyone else in the bar because they're all on Tinder. So it's like, I guess the idea of going up to someone and being interested in them, and maybe asking for their phone number, asking for a date or something it can be very intimidating, especially if they say no or they're not interested. So the whole online dating thing helps take some of those anxieties away, because if, for example, someone is going to reject you or not be interested in you, at least they won't do it straight to your face. You can sort of take the rejection a little bit easier.
Now, love was already complicated enough, and technology now seems to have made it even more difficult to understand, at least for some. Now, there are also those who beg to differ, those who say technology has made it easier to catch many more fish in the sea. Much better options, much bigger options. On the other side of the break, we get you to meet one such man, a man whose mission is love, and he has an app to prove that great relationships can still be born out of a smartphone. What am I building? The interpersonal dynamics are whatever I can experience online.
Yep.
The profile and what I'm building up, the image of the person is exactly the same as whatever that person is trying to project as an aspirational personality of theirs online. What am I building?
Sure. So the ultimate holy grail, the ultimate end of the funnel, as we say, is you actually take a call whether you really want to meet this person offline and take it forward, right? But you have done enough, you have spent enough time in having a conversation with that person, looking at the profile, shortlisting, making up your mind that, you know what, it is worth meeting this person.
I am the Contrarian. This is my world. Is my world.
Hi, I am Nitin Gupta, CEO at Vi. Today I am going to talk about how we are revolutionizing how young Indians are finding their true love.
Love in time of technology. It's a very delicious term. As I say it, I think I should write a book about this. I think it'll be an amazing bestseller. But this is really also the truth. with a huge amount of things that have entered our space, which is also an actual lack of time, a very difficult way of actually setting up a date, meeting people, actually having interpersonal relationships. What came to save all of us? Once again, it's online, it's the app world, and once again, we are going to talk about the most delicious term I've used in a long time, love in time of technology. Now, is this good? Is this bad? Will it become better? And especially, what's the Indian context? Can you really fall in love online? Well, we're about to find out. First, about a minute to you just to describe, is this a better world? This may be a world that is necessary, but is this a better world?
I think it's like a world which is factors better, and the reason being that, you know, I say from our whole traditional angle of how we have approached this whole domain, right? Look at the new age Indians, right? Their lives are getting busier day after day. The social circle, the times that you are getting, you don't even have time to pursue a hobby, you know. Take about the fact that you're going to meet someone really interesting and, you know, try to think, you know, you're going to spend a life with. Technology helps you over there.
I'm just going to ask you to backtrack a little.
Sure.
Okay. The first thing you said is that this is a much better world, right? I said this is a much better world because of necessity. Okay. You immediately use the word how busy we are, how difficult it is to approach somebody in real life. How can you really come to know what is the kind of interdynamics you have with that person?
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
But is it a better world? We'll get down to the fact that, you know, you can't ignore the current situation.
Sure.
But is it a better world than, let's say, 10 or 20 years back, where you would only meet with friends?
Yeah.
There was a quality to who you would meet.
Right.
There were no surprises at that time, because, you know, if you were to meet somebody and you were to click, you actually clicked. In this world, first of all, you click and you actually get to somebody. You haven't clicked with them. You just click and you got to somebody.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's that trauma and shock of the online becoming offline, and you're like, you know, the number of people that post on a dating site, oh my God, finally met him. It was a complete disaster. He was totally different from what I had made him up in my mind. So how is this better? Necessary, yes.
Sure.
Better?
The point that you are trying to make, that, you know, the shock part, right? You met someone and he turned out to be really different. If you use technology, you are anyway spending that amount of time on, let's say, an app. After getting connected, you are actually spending a lot of time in having these chat conversations. The whole, you know, interesting social data about the person, which is anyway available publicly, right? And he's talking about it. He's talking about, you know, what places he's visiting. He's talking about what kind of food he likes to eat. He's talking about, you know, all interesting friends that you have.
But you're forgetting the fact that there are so many studies, and in fact, what studies? We all know it, we do it ourselves, that most of what I say online is a drama, is a creation of my own mind, is what I aspire to be one day. So I may eat a kind of food one day, but I want everybody to think, that's my normal diet, man, I'm very cool, and I only eat this kind of stuff. And the holiday I go to, and all the fake pictures, and everything that you do online is an aspiration for your personality that you actually want to be. How many very lonely people have 700 friends on Facebook? How many people who have no social life talk about the amount of partying that they do? So isn't this actually a dramatic exaggeration of the same?
So traditionally, why it won't work on a platform like this is anybody and everybody would be able to enter into the platform and, you know, start doing stuff. So the approach primarily is what makes the difference. So, like, you know, for example, the approach of doing a super curation, and I'll take a very simple example of how a curation work on a platform like us. You know, you are married, you won't be able to enter. You are above 40 years of age, you won't be able to enter. You have less than 50 friends, you won't be able to enter. Even after you enter, you go through a manual curation exercise. You know,
you actually manually filter each and every person
male profile, which is an
every male
system,
profile,
and also female profile. But the measures, the criteria over which you are judging them is different, right? So you will judge a male differently than you will judge a female, right? So we look at the pictures, we look at, you know, what you have written in the profile, we look at, you know, your education, your profession, which is obviously a very, you know, high area of assertion for us. And then after you passes through all these checks and balances, then you are able to enter into the platform. Where were these checks and balances earlier? You know, there was no system which has been built earlier which solves this problem of, you know, reduce the spam.
After all of this has happened, I've entered, I'm actually, what am I really building? I mean, that entire exercise and a reward at the end of the rainbow what is it? The pot of gold is actually virtual. It's quite fake.
No.
So what am I building? The interpersonal dynamics are whatever I can experience online.
Yep.
The profile and what I'm building up, the image of the person is exactly the same as whatever that person is trying to project as an aspirational personality of theirs online. What am I building here?
Sure. So the ultimate holy grail, the ultimate end of the funnel, as we say, is you actually take a call whether you really want to meet this person offline and take it forward, right? But you have done enough, you have spent enough time in having a conversation with that person, looking at the profile, shortlisting, making up your mind that, you know what, it is worth meeting this person, right? And ultimately it converges to a physical meeting, in the offline world. And, that's how you take it forward.
What have you seen as a difference between maybe studies that have been done abroad about dating sites and what you're running right now? Are there more committed people here? Do you have any statistics on how many people actually have a long-term relationship from here? Did people get married? How is it different from something that's happening abroad?
I would like to answer it with the testimonials that we are getting, right? So one of the interesting aspects which happens in India, a female user sending an email saying that from the time I started using a platform like this, my confidence have increased because she's not really that good looking, and so she won't, she would feel hesitant approaching, guys who he might be liking in her study place or workplace. But then being on a platform gives her a immediate social gratification that, you are being liked by people.
So my last question is really all about this entire space now, okay? You're doing something which is committed, curated, very well worked out. You're thinking this is India, therefore the context must be great, all good. But there's this entire space has many players. And the predominant idea is not to get people together, but to create a very valuable online business. So, the people coming to you are coming for a purpose, but your purpose is to create a very valuable, so it can be bought out by somebody or whatever. I mean, there are purposes. Look, online businesses are all about that. Let's not run away from that fact, right? So there are different reasons why you're doing it versus why people are coming to you. So many people have different experiments. You have the Tinders of this world, which are very, very brutal in approach, right? I mean, it's the hot or not of this generation, right? So does that make your entire business a little sleazy eventually? Because you're still in one space, right?
So I would, I think the space is much, much larger. And if you compare to, let's say, a global competitor, look at the approach. It's still a very Indian problem, right? I mean, you experience the platform that they would have done. It's a very game-like an experience, very, very heavily dependent on the image, right? You basically take the call. You basically take the call based on what that 10 seconds of fame is going to look like.
But still, they are counted in your space. That's what I'm trying to say. So therefore, is that maybe the biggest problem you face right now?
No, I think, we start with one problem, which is basically making people meet, making interesting people meet. But if you think about the space, it's not just dating, but more social discovery, right? That's like a much huge, larger space. And, we try to look at not a global competitor, but a person like a Momo in China. I just take an example. And exactly the same socio-economic setup, right? The problem with a country like China or India is more social discovery. And then, this is like the first step. The other, steps that you will take to ultimately broaden your horizon is having interest-based conversations, making people meet, which might be from same profession. Like, me connecting to you and having interesting discussions around technology. I would not be able to meet someone like you if there is no platform like that. You might be on the platform, and then we might be having an interesting conversation not here, but on the mobile app, on our interest-based conversation. The domain is like much, much larger.
So the space is much larger than for a few players to actually bring it down. Okay, so now you're going to do something which every single person, lots of people watching the show right now, and a lot of those people, you know who you are looking for love. One big tip to actually make this happen. So away from the typical things of make yourself sound more interesting, a better picture, should be a solo, like I've given a tip right now. The one thing that makes the biggest difference.
I think, it's very simple question. It's the conversation, right? Crack the conversation really nicely. The technology helps us.
So you should have a professional scriptwriter sitting next to you while you're chatting.
No, we do the job. We do the job. The technology does the job, right? And I didn't talk about it, and let me just talk about it. Glad you asked this question. You are talking to some person, you can just say hashtag, right? And I might just tell that, Rajiv Makhni seems to like Aam Aadmi Party, right? Why don't you crack a conversation on that? And then I'm like, okay, how much do you like Arvind Kejriwal? right? So
So these are taken from within my profile of
So
what
it's
I
like
may
you-
have as.
Right. So it's like having an invisible friend sitting between you two and then trying to make it work.
So you're changing it from the blind date to something
to something
which is
very
actually a
interesting
little
and
bit more.
meaningful. Right? So Indian male, they
would
don't
you
work-
say that this is a little, is this, it's great. I think it's an amazing thing that you're actually doing this, but is this a little bit more like, okay, may not be my interest, but I'm going to anyway talk to the person about it. So again, going back to that whole, I'm faking it a little with that person.
Yeah, well, the problem being, what is the traditional problem? And, I have to say this, Indian male won't know how to crack a conversation. They won't go beyond a hi or a hello.
heard that here, not from me, but from him. Okay.
Well, right, so how do you solve this problem, right? And then obviously that's like a, traditional social setup. We are getting into our minds thinking, yeah, how do I crack this conversation? And then if I can provide a little help in making that happen, then ultimately I cannot be there forever, right? Ultimately it's between you two who have to take it offline and take the conversation
Okay,
forward.
great. Thank you so much. I think love in time of technology seems to have improved a lot more than we expected to be. Thank you so much for being on the show. So if you are looking for love, then this may well be the way to go. Don't think about just your friends, they know only a few people. Don't think about family, they only want to get you married, and of course to somebody that they think would be perfect for you, maybe very different. You've got all the tips you need right now. It's not a stigma anymore. Go out there, make sure you meet a lot more people, and like he said, you'll meet a lot of people that you may never have met before. Love in time of technology, you're ready for it. See you next week.